Hello there, my friends, and welcome back to the Brightworks and another match of Beyond All Reason. Today we're looking at a little bit of a learner's match, so grab your popcorn and a drink and a snack. Make sure that you have everything you need on this exciting ride as we check out this match that was played on All That Glitters. We checked out a lot of Supremismus lately, and it's only fair to check out All That Glitters if you're going to be taking a look at Supremismus. I feel like those two maps definitely go hand in hand. Now, our red team leader, spawning as a Cortex commander in the air position, goes by the name of Comrade Carl. Going to be showing us what he's got right here in that beautiful Comrade colors. Going to be going for some of those solar panels as well as the mexes, all that good stuff, and fairly standard. All the way across the map, spawning on the front line is a blue Armada commander, goes by the name of Dujavi here. Dujavi going to be playing as Armada and going into bots. I'm excited to see it. I always like seeing bots on All That Glitters. Maybe not optimal, especially on the big flat areas where the vehicles are. I tried playing vehicles on the stream Tuesdays and Saturdays 12 to 4 PDT in case you're interested in joining in on those. And I got absolutely destroyed, so maybe not my specialty. I certainly prefer the bots. There's something to be said with how mobile, how agile they are. They definitely feel a little bit better in my opinion. That, and you also have to sort of forsake your base in the early game here, and I just hate leaving the base too early with the commander and suddenly two ticks appear in the back and completely ravage your entire mineral line, your entire back line, I should say. This isn't StarCraft. Now, this is a lower level game. As you can see, we're in the 28s, which is bizarre to me. I mean, I remember a point where the highest level commanders were 30 OS. Those were like the pros. Now 28 is kind of like the low ground. It's kind of the middle of the road, lower side of things. Oh, how the turntables, I suppose. And yeah, we're gonna be seeing what these players have here. Obviously critiquing and seeing how their builds stack up, how things go, and maybe it'll be a learning experience for all of us. Now already, everything I will say looks fairly stock standard. I do like that we have some text coming out right here. My bad, the orange commander spawning in what is prototypically the hard eco position. Usually this player does nothing on the map until about the 25-minute mark where they start pumping out Marauders or Shiva or some sort of T3 off of a multi-APHIS setup. Glad to see that we're getting a couple of ticks out on the field because it really doesn't cut into your build all that much, but it can definitely give you a lot of value if you trade them out efficiently. A couple of rovers will be spotted with it, so that's always nice. Giving the yellow commander a little bit of forewarning that these rascals are going to be headed on into the main base here. We're trying to divert power over towards shutting those down, but they do still get into the base. This is some fabulous scouting information right here from the purple commander. And I think some eco damage too. Yeah, all right. Rascals fending for themselves and will manage to snipe the metal extractor there. Ticks almost shutting it down, but just barely too slow. Nice little bit of micro, and eventually that will be deflected. All right, we're off to a good start here. There's also an air scout headed across the map right here. You can see the lavender player, yeah, the lavender player, Jormungar, doing a excellent job of scouting over here. Will be shot down by an AA turret from Sign. Glad to see that we've gone for a little bit of early AA. We're going for a metal storage and an energy storage. Luxuries that oftentimes you can't afford on really precisely machined builds. Not to say that this isn't one of them, but it does shake my confidence a little bit here as to what exactly we're going for in the backline. Obviously, the colors correlate to the true skill value of the team. If you haven't figured that out, let me point that out to you for a second. The blue player will always be the #1 player, and the red player will always be the #1 player. Occasionally, there's a little glitch in the system, but at the very least, that's how it's supposed to work. So if you're curious why I always introduce the red commander and the blue commander, it's because they're the quote-unquote team leaders. Not that anybody ever plays like that. Although it would be cool, wouldn't it, to have a game where everyone follows the leader, essentially a 9v9, except one of the players isn't playing on the map, they're just orchestrating the battle. Kind of a cool idea. Doubt you could find enough people to do it, though. You'd have to find 16 willing participants all the way across the map, by the way. Little bit of a tick aggression over here. Love to see it. This is exactly what I was talking about. Those orange ticks coming out from the backline. Not normally the units, or not normally built by a player that would produce units, but you can see already doing a fabulous job of creating chaos. Blown apart wind turbines, blown apart some metal extractors. Resbot gonna come over here and start reclaiming all this stuff too. Always inconvenient when your teammate has a mass reclaim field set up and the Resbot runs into your base and starts reclaiming all your precious resources. That was about 10, maybe 12 wind turbines going down right there. A whole bunch of this gonna be reclaimed. And eventually we'll start rebuilding all this, but sufficient enough damage that I would say that those ticks got well more than their value out here. I'm sure My Bad is going to be feeling great about that. So interesting, we're not really going for tech here. We're a little greedy with the advanced solars, just getting those up a little bit quicker than normally you would, just as far as how much metal we have in the bank at the current moment. But I guess I'm basing that as if this were a eco build, and it just isn't. I don't mind seeing the support on the front line, but obviously the more units you contribute in the early game, you're essentially forfeiting an economic lead in the late game here. Luckily, kind of mirrored across the map here, it looks like the Seafoam Green Commander has also decided to opt for units on the front here, so all is roughly even right now between these two teams. Slight metal advantage for the blue team. Nothing too egregious, though. There's a bunch of unclaimed metal extractors. That's definitely something that I'd like to see improved here. Cleaning up those metal extractor spots and making sure that each and every one of those is secured. Oftentimes tricky, right? There's a little bit of like politics that goes into this. You can tell that the metal extractors that were unclaimed were the ones right between the maroon and the pink commander. Just be the bold one. It's like eating the last of the leftovers in the fridge, right? When the communal leftovers, not your roommate's leftovers, but the communal, you know, the pizza party leftovers or whatever. Just eat the last slice. It's okay. It's much better that it gets eaten and the box gets to get thrown away. And we're completely off the rails here, but I think everybody kind of gets the message that I'm going for. Anyways, the blue commander actually having set up a beamer turret on the front line. Okay. I don't mind it. Beamer turret obviously going to help a lot against Rocketeers. It does outrange them by 5. Not a lot. Not a lot at all. Basically means they're essentially even because the Rocketeer can move, of course. But yeah, it does certainly mean that, at least for the time being, applying pressure with Rocketeers is going to take a whole lot more than normally you would. For 190 metal as opposed to the 85 of the light laser turret, I think the beamer turret is probably one of the easiest things to get tremendous value with. Just as far as its raw damage output mixed with its range, mixed with its cost. Yeah, I think it's probably one of the most efficient static defenses that there are out there. Lightning and flame turret's definitely on that list as well somewhere, pretty high up. But a moment of respect for the humble beamer turret, constantly contributing its single focused laser beam of fire. I have always been the kind of gamer that appreciates the slow and steady march of progress, right? Taking every inch with resounding artillery fire and fighting over every foot to, you know, squeak your defenses forward and kind of crawl across the battlefield. I've always enjoyed that sort of playstyle. Not one we get to see very much in the 8v8, although Million Tech sort of deciding to show it to us, setting up the front lines, digging in the trenches. And yeah, not usually something we see all too much of because units are so powerful and beyond all reason. But certainly a fun way to play, for instance, against the AI, although they tend to scale extremely quickly. Anybody that's played against the Barbarian AI knows what I'm talking about. If you haven't, go give yourself the pleasure. They're quite tough. As soon as you let them run rampant on the map, they will spend their resources, and oftentimes spending your metal is the hardest thing to do. Rocketeers and pawns moving forward right here, but there is a nice little choke point. My goodness, what a queue. Okay, we've got 3 heavy laser towers, 2 jammers, and 2 gauntlets set up here. 2 agitators, pardon me. What a queue. These walls are actually quite nice. They do block a lot of that rocket fire from coming in. You can't repair the walls. They will regenerate themselves slowly, very slowly over time, but you can't exactly repair them, which means that they're a little bit tricky to keep fielded on the front lines. You kind of have to constantly be rebuilding them. Makes it definitely very complicated. I'm worried about this queue, though. That is hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of metal going down right there that we plan to put on the battlefield here, and it's all T1, and that definitely worries me quite a lot. I don't know if we're going to have enough time to recuperate the costs to gain enough value to justify that. We are certainly hitting that medium tank snowball right here, though. Yeah, Patrick Type 1 going to eventually hit that medium tank snowball where really there's nothing you can do to shut it down before it gets to your base, except for maybe a really well-placed D-gun or something like that. At the end of the day, the medium tank ball is a tool like any other, and it's a very, very expensive one. Nice catch over here, by the way. A couple of medium tanks going down for the purple commander over here, Zyke. The medium tank ball is definitely a tool, and it's useful in a lot of different cases, but like most tools, it can also be improved with a lot of different things. One of them that I see in the backline is Shuriken here, so I'm glad to see that we've gone for some of those shuriken over here as we watch a commander explode over on this left side. By the way, that's going to be the pink commander that was lingering over by these walls and by the resbot and everything over there. The beamer turret showing it exactly why it's the king of the battlefield with its blue laser beam of death, also whittling down a couple of those rocketeers right here. You can see it doesn't do the most damage per second. It doesn't do the craziest amount of damage, but it's so consistent, so predictable, so reliable. Definitely an extremely valuable piece of kit on the front lines here. It'll eventually go down to Wolverines. That's one of the things I like about it. It's not overpowered. It's just exactly the right amount of power for exactly the scale of position that you try to fight with, essentially shutting down Rocketeer pushes. Using that metal, oh cheeky, using that metal to go for a gauntlet right here. So this is a weird position for a gauntlet. It has a very narrow field of fire. You can see essentially only able to fire like this, or I suppose out, you know, kind of in this direction. Not the worst thing in the world, but definitely a little bit strange. It will make it inconvenient to sit out here, though, but it wouldn't be too hard to push through this choke point. Whoops, pardon me. Push through this choke point and directly into the gauntlet to kill it right there. I'm curious whether that'll be worth it or not. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. All right, Agitator 1 is up and running right now. Gauntlet has been shelling away at this Agitator that's been up and coming for a good long while here now. You know, these Agitators are far enough forward that I think they could probably find some value. But I am so uncomfortable every time I see them. Yeah. They just make me so uncomfortable because it's so easy not to get value out of them. At least we have the walls here to kite a lot of those units around and make sure that the vehicles can't push too far forward too quickly. Big old pawn run by here. Gonna actually manage to snipe a couple of those T1 solar panels. Very expensive losing those. You lose so much metal just because of the way that the decay of structures goes when they die here. You lose about 30% of your metal. Off of 150 means you're only going to pull back 90 metal out of that solar panel. Definitely hurts quite badly for one of the agitators to just go down right there. Similarly for agitators, right? You're putting 1,000 metal in, but once it goes down, you can only really recuperate 780. Means you lose quite a lot. And this is that medium tank ball. So this is what I was talking about. This is the tool that I was referring to. The medium tank ball is essentially just unstoppable. It just has so much combined total health here that it's really, really difficult to put a stop to. See a combined total of several thousand metal eventually built up and put on the front lines right here. The problem with this is you have to get so much damage done with this medium tank ball, otherwise you've essentially just built thousands of metal tanks and sent them on over to the enemy. Nice D-gun right there. Ooh, we will eventually bring down the commander, but that was a clean set of D-guns. Blasting apart a whole bunch of those medium tanks right there for Patrick Type 1, the pink commander. Now, maroon commander is moving forward here. Medium tanks, Janices, all that good stuff. We also have Rocketeers moving forward right now, and the red team just seems overall more willing to get aggressive. All right, so we've dug our heels in as the blue team and learned exactly why static defense loses to mobile offense every single time and beyond all reason. It's like I've said before, static defense is great because it's like units. But units are, or what did I say? I said units are like static defense, except they can move. It's wonderful. Anywho, Rocketeer is moving forward, but eventually shut down by these medium tanks. That being said, 2 metal extractors going down, not to name all the other ones that have been taken down on the front lines all over the place. Definitely not looking good right here for the blue team. Now that is nice. Cheeky little bombing run takes out just about every wind turbine over here on the right-hand side for the yellow commander. That's the reason why you space them out a little bit. We are hitting those medium tank numbers over on this side as well. Yeah, my goodness. About 7,000 metal worth of medium tanks for the yellow commander. At any moment, we can pull the trigger right here, and as long as you have more medium tanks than your opponent, you can send them crashing through, beat their army, and eat up all the metal. If you can eat up all the metal, then it's definitely well worth it. If you can't, it can be a little bit dicey. It can definitely cause a problem when you're feeding too much resources to the enemy players, but oftentimes 2 or 3 resbots following behind is more than enough to eat up all the wreckages. Fatboy produced over here. Okay, this is interesting. I saw somebody asking how to counter Fatboy spam, which was interesting to me, not because I think Fatboys are particularly difficult to counter, but because I had no idea that anybody was playing Fatboy spam. And the very next live stream, somebody played Fatboy spam. And it got absolutely obliterated. The counter to Fatboys is definitely sharpshooters, especially if you're playing, well, I mean, I suppose only if you're playing Armada T2 bots. But another powerful counter, of course, would be something like a Mammoth or even Sumos. Anything with relatively high range and relatively high health. The other option, of course, would be to go for a big old Sheldon ball and start blasting it away. You do have to be careful, though, because you have to maintain that radar jammer, and you have to maintain the radar jammer, and you have to maintain the radar field so that you can actually see what you're shooting at over there. A little bit tricky with that one, but also another viable alternative. Of course, the cheapest option always going to be the Spybot. Spybot's sort of the great equalizer, the comeback mechanic, available to anybody and everybody and beyond all reason. The ability to paralyze any amount of units for any amount of time in a certain AoE, extremely powerful. Fat Boy here trying to find its value. Yeah, there we go. D-Gun from Dujavi, love to see it. Taking down that very expensive T2 bot, Manta Rock 101. Explicitizing as he loses that really expensive unit on the front lines. Definitely not comfortable losing one of those. We do have some rocket spiders coming out here. Gonna be creepy crawling up onto the hillside as in raining down artillery onto the slopes of the shores of Dujavi's front lines. I don't mind it one bit. I think that's a great play, actually. Utilize those high grounds to your advantage since you have them. The eco is slowly scaling up here. T2 Constructor is stalled out here. We definitely need to continue upgrading these metal extractors whenever possible. They pay for themselves quite quickly here. You can see we're actually going for an Aphis in the backline. So blue player says, you know what, I've got a solid enough hold on this area over here. The Gauntlet is doing wonderfully. We've started to see some T2. It's time to eco scale like it's nobody's business. And I think I agree. I think that's probably the right move here. The options obviously would be to either push harder through this choke point, try and break it with your positional advantage, which you lose as soon as you step into this canyon, or you could try and eco like a madman and use that advantage. And I think that's what the blue player is going for, and I think that's probably the better of the two options. At the very least, it guarantees you a spot in the long run. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that your next 2, 3, 4 fights are going to go well, but it does guarantee that your long run stability will increase, or your odds of having a stable game into the late game will increase. Fighters pull to try and shoot down the shuriken, but they do escape for their lives. There's about 15 of them, or exactly 15 of them over here. Red Commander keeping them tucked together to try and make sure that they stay safe. Are we on T2? Yeah, we are not. Okay. Jormungandr, not quite on T2. It's about time for it. We do have the T2 mechs coming up here. Probably what we're waiting on. Yeah, gonna upgrade those T2 mechs first, and then eventually get our way into T2 aircraft. The other side of the map, the Red Commander, though, already with the Fusion and the T2 aircraft, you can see Comrade Carl just a little bit more practiced with this build as they start to amp up the fighter production here. Yeah. Fusion reactor up and running. Energy converters going to be coming up and running here as well. Plenty of wind turbines. Love to see it. All very powerful, of course. Love the walls that we've got here. This is, kind of a shady dealing between two teammates, because it's like, yeah, I trust you. But I don't really trust you. I don't think you'll clean up those run-bys when they happen. Obviously, mistakes do happen, though. That's more so what that's really accounting for, but it is always funny when you see that, because you're just wondering, I don't think this player is going to be capable of stopping any run-bys. Maybe it's a courtesy, though. If this left-hand side gets overrun, then I suppose the red player would be grateful to have some sort of barrier between them so that they don't get flooded through the mountains over here. Cutting off opportunity lanes, definitely very viable. Now we have tons and tons of rocket spiders. Let me adjust the viewpoint so we can see them. There they are, hanging out on the slopes of this mountain right there. I do love the rocket spiders. They've got quite a cool design. Little fusion cell in the back right there next to their exhaust port in the rear. Lovely stuff. Their little rocket pods mounted atop their chassis. Always cool to see. Is anybody here interested in fighting, though, is the question. I'm gonna go ahead and speed this game up. We have Wolverine continuously firing into the choke point here. Nobody actually firing at all, though. Yeah, everybody just more than happy to sit back, build up, make some units. This is one of the lower level trademarks. Everybody sort of simultaneously agreeing, you know what? Rather than sending units forward, rather than trying to trade out our T1 units against other T1 units, we'll just all go for T2. And simultaneously, we'll get that big T2 transition. This is the kind of thing where it's an inefficiency you don't spy until you're well familiar with the game. But continuing to produce T1 units like this, I mean, you can imagine as soon as T2 hits the field, these are going to trade extremely inefficiently. So if you really want to jumpstart the economy and greed like hell, you eat up these T1 units. 9,000 metal worth of tanks. That's an entire Aphis. You put it into an Aphis, and then suddenly you've got a fabulous position in the economic game. The trigger is pulled. Tank bodies littering the floor over here. Commander moving forward. Ooh, Commander moving forward. Nice D-gun right there from the Commander. Takes out so many of these Mauser. The Starlight goes down as well. Commander eventually falls. But that was a beautiful, beautiful play right there. Missile trucks are ready, and they fire away at those shuriken, blasting them out of the sky. Medium tanks eventually going to jump on top of all this, and just like that, all hell has broken loose. The red team ready to pull the trigger. And there they go, sending the medium tanks directly into the face of that heavy T2. And this is exactly why you eat those up rather than sending them to their doom. 9,000 metal directly down the drain with no hope of ever reclaiming that, because all of it is well behind the front lines of the blue team with essentially no damage done. It's the kind of inefficiency you start to sniff out once you get well familiar with the game, but certainly when you're a little newer, you're still trying to figure out the way that the economics of Beyond All Reason work. It's a little harder to spy exactly why that move was so dreadfully inefficient. But here we go. T2 finally rolling out to the field. Maybe it'll be enough. Maybe it'll be strong enough to finally convince these players to have a little bit of action. Interesting battle about to happen over here. We've got the duel of the rocket spiders. Hold on, let me frame this up real nicely. Yeah, look at that. Rocket spiders on both mountains firing away at each other. That is just epic. Wow, that's so cool. How often do we get to see rocket spiders fighting each other up on hillsides like this? Obviously taking advantage of their wall crawling ability means that they're able to fight in these very strange battlefields. That was something else. I love little interesting battles like that that happen between these two. Murder cries out, Paradise Lost, and I think that's exactly what happened here. The pink player completely destroying the forces of the blue. Well, at least the creepy crawly forces of the blue player. There's still a couple more lingering around over here. Janus is going to fire up the mountain right there. Not very much fuel in those twin Janus missiles right there. They don't have an effective travel range that's very impressive. The Pitbull's certainly contributing quite a lot more. The sharpshooters as well here. But this is definitely a nice little push here for Paradise Lost. Yeah, Paradise Lost and Montarock doing a great job of holding. The Bulls have rolled forward. Manayor. Manayor. Yeah, Manayor. Manayor in a little bit of trouble here. Will go down. Honestly, at this point in the game, the commanders are well outpaced by the T2. And again, we're in a weird situation where so much T2 has just been smashed against the face of the enemy team, but how effective has it really been? I mean, 14,000 metal deposited directly into the bank account, essentially, of the blue team, and I just can't help but wonder if maybe that inefficient trade over and over and over again that we keep seeing all over the place is eventually going to be the downfall of the red team. I'll tell you what, the pros definitely spoil us with how quickly they can get an economy up and running, how quickly they can get damage accrued across the map. You can see Aphises coming up in the back line over here. You can see the energy converters coming up. Everybody getting ready for a late game. Everybody planning for a late game. Nobody's heart is really in it to win it at the T2 stage, and I feel like we can definitely see that here. The lack of enthusiasm for fighting anywhere, the tremendous amount of pork definitely says to me that we're excited to play with some of those T3 units, not so much with any of the T1 or the T2. Fine by me, but it does mean we're going to have to speed things up here just in the sake of keeping things interesting. I like to bring you guys the very best of the Beyond All Reason, and I think probably watching a bunch of units stare at each other for 30 minutes not going to be the ideal situation here. Yeah. Big bomber pull right here. All right. Go after the forward T2 laboratory right there. All the bombers will be shot down. Flak trucks en masse right here. Now that is a good move. That's a move that I definitely encourage if you're going for any kind of T2 vehicles. Building those flak trucks. If you're not sure how to help your team, like maybe you've won your lane or something, or you're just waiting in a situation like this and you want to build static defense, especially if you want to build static anti-air defense, always consider the flak trucks. Superbly good at shooting down massive bomber runs, especially for the fact that they can move, right? So they can sort of stay underneath those fighters and move along with the bombers. A very, very efficient way of dealing with that T2 air, and your air player will absolutely thank you. If you can suddenly find a way to completely shut down huge portions of the enemy's force, their air force, with those flak trucks, it's going to make the air player a whole lot, going to make their job a whole lot easier. The other side to that, of course, is that with the flak trucks, you can always move them forward underneath the enemy air wall and dismantle it. Oftentimes understated how incredibly powerful that is to go for just a couple of flak trucks underneath an air wall that's patrolling back and forth. What you end up with in that situation is essentially a completely depleted air wall, and it makes bombing runs way, way easier to maintain. Just a whole handful of fighters can keep a bunch of bombers safe enough to go for bombing runs. Means you need less bombers overall. Essentially everything adds up in your favor. Not to mention, of course, that those fighters aren't for free. That might feel like it with how many of them we end up seeing in these games. But they certainly are not. Alright, finally looks like we're getting into a good old-fashioned scuffle here. We've got some grunt spam or some pawn spam. Which one is that? Yeah, grunt spam coming up on the left-hand side. We've got pawns running forward all over the place on the left. No, sorry, ticks running forward all over the place in the middle of the map here. And we have the T2 once again smashing directly through into the middle of the map. I'm going to smash your boy. What a beautiful concave right here. Yeah, the Tremors firing, the medium tanks, the heavy tanks, the Quakers. Everybody and their mother is firing into this choke point. And once again, we've thrown several thousands of metal directly down the drain. At what point do we wake up, smell the roses, and decide to contribute these forces elsewhere? You can imagine all that metal put into pushing this front line, for instance, would completely basunder it, rendering it inoperable. All of it sent over here on the left-hand side, maybe would be able to achieve something, although we do have T3 hitting the battlefield for the first time right now. The lightning tank going to be quite valuable for blasting away a bunch of these heavy tanks. The bull's definitely difficult to bring down, but if there's one big daddy that's going to be strong enough to do it, it'll be the king of tanks, the Thor. Would love to see an EP missile to paralyze a bunch of this, capture the prey, and keep it in one spot so that we can more easily kill it all. Thor obviously ignoring shields too, rendering that 3,000 metal investment completely moot. There's Deegan right there from Patrick Type 1. Moving the units back and then moving the commander forward, essentially baiting that Thor into the commander right there. Very nice to see. Everyone getting ready for T3 production. Fair enough, I guess we're just headed directly into the epic late game. Here we go. Let me highlight this point one more time. So 12,600 metal in mix of T1 and no T2 actually. Yeah, just all T1. About 12,000 metal worth of T1. Getting ready to push forward right now. Tick spam continuing to march directly into the Juno missiles. The radiated wastelands by those Junos. I've been watching the new Fallout show. Definitely well worth a look. Whether you're a fan of the series or not, whether you're a die-hard Fallout fan or whether you're just a casual enjoyer of the apocalyptic genre, I actually cooked on that one for sure. 100% would recommend. This is the power of T2. Mass Banisher firing into this crowd of T1, and in the blink of an eye, it's all gone. Banisher's sort of the, I almost want to call them the Cortex T2 equivalent to the Starlight. They feel like they function on similar parameters, right? Single big high burst tracking kind of damage. I guess the Starlight doesn't track so much, but it does its attack in a big beam, which is very difficult to avoid if it has a direct lock on you. Similar to the Banisher there. Razorbacks kind of parked all over the place just to make sure spam doesn't leak through. There's the big shuriken wave moving forward. Love the inclusion of a couple of shuriken on the back here. I mean, this is more than a couple here, but I love the inclusion nonetheless because, like I've said well before, the shuriken are very, very easy to find value with. I mean, you can see shutting down tremendous portions of that tank push. Commander now going to have enough time to degen down some of those more important tanks. Zar's obviously prone to being shurikened, making them very, very slow. I mean, they're already slow, but making them even slower, making it very difficult for anything to push forward here with any measure of confidence. Ah, I see. The play has been revealed. Our Lavender commander, Jormgar, has decided to go for a whole bunch of dragons. Where are we parking all these? Okay, so we've got a few of them. We've got 4 dragons in total right here. I'll be quite honest, the dragon not my favorite way to end games. It has annoyed me one too many times. Certainly a valid option though. It's hard to deny the power of the dragon, especially when the enemy air wall has been well depleted. An option I think works a whole hell of a lot better though are these Thors, which are retreating for some reason, even though they have all the reason in the world to continue marching forward. I guess they're scared of those wasps they see coming in. For fair reason, the T2 bombers and the wasps could certainly hurt those Thors pretty badly. There we go. The flak truck's finally getting underneath it all, though. Blasting it all out of the sky in a heartbeat. And those Thors will be safe and sound, at the very least, for the time being. Yeah, Commander Carl in a little bit of trouble right here. The Centurion waddling away. Trying to find some sort of anything. Some sort of value in this T2, T3 landscape. harder and harder to find value for T1, which is why I'm completely surprised that we have T1 still in this field, aside from spam units like grunts and pawns and Thors. I guess you could spam Thors. It's a very effective kind of spam, and you need quite a lot of metal for it. But it'll work pretty fabulously. Mass Thor is one of the hardest combination, or well, not really combination, one of the hardest build-ups to kill, one of the hardest singular compositions. Not sure what the term for that would be. A composition made of only a single unit. I guess that's an oxymoron. But anyway, you get the idea. Thor is very difficult to bring down. Case in point, this Thor headed directly towards the base of the pink player right here. There we go. Ooh, that was inconvenient right there for the red commander who was transporting around in the air transport. Unfortunately, happened to be passing right over a fusion reactor that accidentally went up in smoke, meaning the red commander got shot down. Just an unfortunate turn of events right there. Eventually, these Karganeth will bring low this dreadful Thor. My goodness, those did manage to get quite a lot of value. Shutting down all of the production base for Patrick Type 1, the pink commander right here. Going to mean that, at least for the time being, no more of those T2 units are going to be pumped out of that laboratory. Juno missiles across the world to try and shut down all the spam coming out here. At this point, the economy is not actually looking as high as I would have thought. I would have expected us to be around the 5K mark at this point. Each team lingering around 1.7 for the blue, 1.0 for the red. Definitely hurts losing all these metal extractors right here on the front lines, but also all those E-converters. Definitely a pain. The blue team has also just ecoed quite a bit harder here. Given so much time on the front lines, it was essentially only a matter of who could greed the hardest, and in this case, it was absolutely the blue team, taking advantage of possibly their better experience, their understanding of how to eco a little bit more efficiently, utilizing that to get a slightly better economy. A slightly better economy eventually translates to a tremendously better economy. Here we go. We got some Webers coming out here. Big fan of the Webers these days. I've always been of the position that the Weber is an extremely powerful tool for Armada commanders. Nobody ever seemed to believe me, but it seems like a bit of a renaissance has occurred, and now everybody believes me. It only takes 1 or 2 games where you get your entire metal storage filled up in the blink of an eye and handing out thousands and thousands of metal to your teammates to convince you how valuable the Weber is. All of this metal and more can be yours for just the small investment of a couple thousand metal worth of Webers. That's the nice thing about Webers too. The first one pays for the second one, and the second one pays for the third and fourth one. The third and fourth pay for the fifth through the eighth, so on and so forth. You get the idea. It's a big old spiral. Love that we're using the Thor against the T1. Finding the most efficient trades and taking them wherever we can. This is essentially a scouting Thor we've got here, and it's doing a fabulous job of it. Yeah, finding any of the vulnerable units that it can and blasting away at them with its dual thunder cannon. Does it actually have a name? Just heavy lightning cannon? That's a bit dull. I think the dual thunder guns sounds a little bit better. At risk of being sued by Treyarch or Activision, who the hell made the Call of Duty Black Ops thunder gun. Any Call of Duty zombies survivors, not survivors, just Call of Duty zombies enjoyers in the chat. There's always a few of them. That was absolutely my childhood. Grew up playing all those zombies games, and then crying myself to sleep because I was terrified. Giving myself nightmares about the zombie games. Yeah, a little bit embarrassing to think about now. Shiva's falling to the paralytic beam of the Webers moving forward right here, making it really easy for Arbiters, really easy for Rocket Spiders, really easy for anything to blast them apart right here. Eventually those Webers will be cleaned up right now, but that's plenty of juicy wreckages that I'm sure the follow-up wave of Webers will be more than happy to reclaim. There we go, about 50 metal per Weber coming back to the economy right here of the Seafoam Green Commander. Definitely going to increase production, something awful. See those spiders crawling out of the laboratory in the background. We do have Titans building up over here as well. My goodness. Somebody has got to send those Titans to the front lines. We've got 3 of them at this point built up right now for the Powder Blue Commanders. Zip. 10 True Skill American Commander. Going to be actually a lot of American Commanders in this match particularly. I do like to look at the statistics for who watches these videos from around the world. Largely American audience. which is unsurprising. But there's actually loads of people from all over the place, and it varies. The number 2 position has never been the same for really too long. A couple of weeks at the most. Pretty impressive. Pretty impressive as far as global communities go. Thor's rolling in. So I want to say supported by the T2, but really that T2 is essentially just cannon fodder. Meat for the grinder. The Titans need to get on top of this. Cataphracts, okay, actually going to be really good against the Thors. I don't really particularly like the base Cataphract, the one with the regular laser beam. However, it is particularly good against big single heavy targets. And the Thor happens to be exactly what you're looking for in that situation. I'm going to go ahead and speed this up again because it looks like we're sort of just spamming at each other once more. Nobody willing to make a play. There go the dragons, though. Yeah, okay, nice. Using those dragons to try and clean a lot of this up. Fighters are pulled to try and shut them down. The dragons essentially always justifying a fighter pull. Whenever you have the opportunity to catch dragons, you really need to. How to catch your dragons. Hit animated movie series. Oh, nice tac nukes firing away over here to pop whatever static defenses they can. Tremors also firing away whatever they can here. I hope these aren't dumb firing. Ooh, a little bit of a bummer that. Tremors much better if you set them to dumbfire in an area. Ooh, we have some demons running forward here as well. Tremors much better if you set them to dumbfire in an area, just so that you can saturate a particular part of the map with a tremendous amount of firepower. Oftentimes, their best use case scenario. You can imagine situations like this in the trench are perfect for what you want to use the Tremor for. Just a couple percent HP every time that the Tremor connects one of its shots, but it does fire just about 1 billion of them. Well, that's pretty beautiful. The demons blasting away, the dragons up in the sky. Bouts of flame in all shapes and sizes, heats, intensities, directions, and variabilities, firing away. Pun well intended. Yeah, and you know what? The demons managed to break through. They do have that little backpack anti-air missile. Not that I think it'd be enough to shoot down these dragons by any means, but it is nice to constantly be whittling away at them. Yeah, about 1% or so, maybe less than that, maybe 0.5% or so, every time that one of those AA missiles connects right there. Demon has not been addressed. Uh-oh. We were trying to build an emergency demon right here from the purple commander. Doesn't finish in time, and indeed it will be the emergency tachyon beam that will actually end up solving this right here, so that's lovely. We do have a lol cannon building up here. We have not got a radar jammer, which is important. The radar jammer cloaks all your constructors, so make sure your enemy doesn't sniff it out. You can see Sign has already pointed out lol cannon question mark. As soon as one of your teammates says that, you need to focus all your force directly towards that point. Lol cannons are a significant investment, but also as soon as they come up, they have a very easy time paying for themselves. Oh, EMP missile, EMP missile. Nice EMP missile. Connects with the Titans. Oh, second one didn't connect. Titans are the borderline between what is and isn't EMP-able. The Thor, Juggernaut, and Behemoth, and the Captain ship, I suppose, are the T3 units, the only T3 units that are incapable of being paralyzed. Just about everything else can be paralyzed, I do believe. Juggernaut continuing to move forward. Shaking off the blast right here from these bulwarks on a care in the world, but the D-gun from Cameo Man will send it right back to where it came from, atomizing it into the air. Follow-up Cataphract push will blast down the commander, though, so it's effectively a 1-to-1 trade. Potentially worth it in these late-game scenarios, but there we go. Wall cannon is online, firing into the base over here. And that is an uncomfortable situation to be in at this point. Build power rupturing in the backline as well. Those ricochets are going to be brutal as the team starts to lose all of its build power. Aphis is popping, sending huge chain reactions through the bases of the pink and red player. And the wall cannon isn't quite done yet. GG Easy running for his resurrected life here as that wall cannon fires directly into the main facility. Nothing supremely juicy. I suppose there's an Aphis over there, but save for the Aphis, nothing absurdly juicy over there to target down, so just kind of dump firing in that direction generally. We've killed the commander, which is always quite nice. The wall cannon has finished its good work. There we go. Gonna start blasting away at the yellow commander's base here as well, who does have quite a few shields. Shields in their default mode, though, without any sort of energy boost or any tweak units of any sort. They will eventually crumble to the wall cannon. I don't think there's any amount that you can build that eventually won't fall to the power of the wall cannon, at least if the wall cannon is being properly powered. It needs quite a lot of energy in order to fire it consistently, but as long as it is being fired consistently, it's a very easy time breaking through these shields. Boom goes the base right there of the yellow commander. Demon's also running by to make sure to secure the deal. No more airplanes, or at the very least only a couple of airplanes up in the sky here. We have a couple of those T2 fighters, the Nighthawks, available from the brown commander, who's been spending most of their metal on shields to try and save the base right now. Dragon has not been addressed. There we go. Some flak will eventually shoot it down. The T2 fighters helping out immensely as well. But to nobody's surprise, I think the blue team has an absurd advantage at this point here. 2.2 thousand metal right now coming in per second for the entire blue team versus the red team's less than 1,000 total. Now the grunts are streaming in as well. Never a good sign when the grunts are making it into your backline. You know that that must be a critical flaw of the defenses. Mass Thor's right here, taken over by Ah My Bad. I believe these originally belonged to Cameo Man. Now being powered by the advanced fusion reactors right here of the orange commander. Brown commander, by the way, goes up in smoke as a couple of those grunts pop the E-converters and send a shockwave right through that base, blowing it all sky high. Beautiful, beautiful push. We'll go ahead and speed this up because I suspect that we know exactly where this game is headed. More and more grunts running into the background right now. Left-hand side has actually held phenomenally, which is impressive. This is usually the side that collapses. Usually breaking through the middle is not what we ideally, not what we normally see. There we go. Aphis pops right there for Ah My Bad. And all of this force is just going to turn directly to the left and start making its way into the backline of the tan and the pink commander, sealing the deal for the red team. Beautiful, beautiful plays right there. I mean, a Ragnarok is about as classic as it gets. You just start firing away and taking out bases, but we took out the exact right base at the exact right time, made sure to keep constantly applying the pressure, switching it up. I've seen so many people forget to move their Ragnarok once they kill a base with it, and yeah, they end up in a weird situation where they've done so much damage and then they forget that they can still do a whole lot more. Anyways, the red team finally throws in the towel, and the blue team takes victory in today's match of Beyond All Reason. I do love these epic late game ones. Even if it was a little strange watching the units stare at each other in the early game, it still was fun to watch the T3 smash heads against each other. Let me know what you thought down below in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to have a great rest of your day. And I will see you in the very next game of Beyond All Reason. Peace out, everybody.